So I thought I'd make another video of topics that I thought is important to share. Much of this I don't think is going to be verifiable, but I was, thinking of something that was pretty important. You should be able to track this person down. This guy, I talked about this. There was this Native American Indian guy. We went on this camping trip. Not camping trip. I don't even remember where it was, but it was like several hours. Could have even been in Oklahoma. But I remember getting there. It was like several hours, and he had a house. And I talked about that. My dad knew this guy from somewhere, and I think he used to work for Texas Instruments. Maybe he didn't work. I don't think he did, but he might have. I don't know how my father met him, but I want to say, I think, because I remember going to the bank with my dad at Texas Instruments in his red pickup truck, and I remember my dad rolling down his window, like the way he was, kind of trying to be one of the guys, and, felt comfortable that way. And I remember him rolling down his window when he told this guy his body shape and his sort of body shape and look like a little bit kind of looked like James Fox, but this guy was different. This is someone else. He had black hair. I don't know if he knew how to speak English, but he was like half native or like a third, 3/4. Maybe not 3/4. I think he was like a quarter or like a half Native American Indian. And so my father, liked the company of people that were native and colored because he was able to relate to them. And I always noticed that when he was around people. When we would go swimming, he would always, we would be the only colored people there. There wasn't even black people at this time. Not even Asian people. We would be like, maybe an Asian, I wouldn't say even Asian people. And we would go to an all-white swimming pool, and there would be a Mexican people would show up, just like one out of like 20 visits that we went there all the time, because my dad had a heart attack, and I would go swimming with him, and it was a chance for him to teach me how to swim and get exercise and play in the pool as he could watch me, and he would walk back and forth to get his daily exercises in the pool. So that's how he would get his exercise. I would go get his exercises with him. And he would always gravitate to these Mexican people, always. They would be way on the other side of the pool by themselves, and he would go walk over there and just start a conversation with them and be there for like 30 minutes. He never met the people. He'd just start a conversation, and he'd just start talking about whatever, like he was part of the crew or something. But he would always do that with only colored people. And a lot of the times they would try to kick us out or try to run us off because we were colored. And the lifeguards were the same way as well. And so anyway, this Indian guy, this half native, I don't know how he met him, but he was like friends with him. And I remember driving to Texas Instruments, we get in the car, and they happened to just run into each other. This guy's talking to him from the distance of his car, not like next to our car, but a good like 30 feet away. I remember him just rolling down the window. I was at the car with him, and I don't know who this guy was. And he rolled down and he goes, "Yeah, I got one." He goes, "That's your son?" He goes, "Yeah, he's a straight," or he said something like that, like yeah, this one likes girls. And I remember that guy kind of looking over at my father, and he was like looking at him real proud, like real happy for my father, and he goes, and he was, sparked a cigarette and started drawing off, like, yeah, I got it, and somehow we came in contact with him around this time, maybe a couple months later, maybe up to a year at the most, and he invites my father and our family with my mother and Frankie. I don't think Julian was born yet. He might have. Julian may have been born? Yeah, Julian might have been born. I think he was really young. He could have been really, really too young. Yeah, I think we go on his camping trip. We go to his camping trip, I don't even remember where we even went, but we were on the road for like 7 hours, and it was like a camper truck. So he had like it was an RV. It was like an RV. It was like a miniature RV, and we were there on the road for like, man, it would felt like 7 or 8 hours, maybe even more than that. I don't even remember where we went, and I think we ended up going to his house. I don't even know where we started, but we drove our car to his house, and then from his house we went to somewhere else, and I don't even remember where it was. I don't remember if we visited another family, or if we went to a Native American Indian tribe land or something like that, but I don't remember seeing any Indians or anything like that. My father was very good at company with this guy. My dad was just having a blast, talking in the front seat with him. My mom was in the back, me and Frankie, and we slept on the very top. The RV was almost a replica. The RV that he had was almost an exact replica as the one that Jeremy King used to have in his front yard. In the front of his house, Jeremy King, he used to have an RV camper, and it was right sitting in front of his house. And he has it for many years. It's the same exact, almost replica of what we went into. And I actually went in camping that with Jeremy several times as well. But we're in this car, and me and Frankie slept at the very top, and Julian, I think, was with my mother. Julian might have remembered him. He was really, really young. And this guy didn't bring anybody. He just brought my dad and our family, and he was driving. And this is the instance when I talk about where we're driving, and this dog crosses the street, like literally 1 or 2 seconds before. I mean, there was no cars around, this dog looked like it just wanted to end itself, and it's what it did. And we couldn't do nothing. And they were both in the car, and we're driving. In the car, I talked about this before, jolted across the street and killed the dog, and you could feel the dog's impact just tremble underneath the car, and the impact when he hit the dog. And it was a pretty big dog. It was like a Labrador, black Labrador. And my father and him, as soon as it happened, he's like, yeah, we can't do it. And I remember looking back out the window, I'd see the dog was laying on the floor. And there wasn't any cars or anything like that. I don't know. It was one of the craziest experiences, because the dog had almost seemed to intentionally do it on purpose. But anyway, my father was like, yeah, they made a joke about it, and then made a quick joke. So it was either us or the dog, because where we're gonna go. You have a family in the car, you can't swerve, or there's nothing you can do. And it just happened so fast. But anyway, we keep driving, and they had this conversation, and they just keep going, and they're having I don't know when the dog got hit in the car, or it was far down the road, I think. But they had been talking for a really long time, laughing and joking. My dad didn't really want me to hear too much what they were saying. He's like, hey, son, we're talking right now. Go over there. I guess they were talking about guy stuff. I don't know. I don't remember where we went at all, but it had to do something with Native American Indian, right? Because it was kind of like the Native American Indian bond between a native and a native, like the tribe feeling or something, which I didn't understand. But this guy was pretty light complected. My father looked very Native American Indian, and so we go to this place. I don't know if it was a restaurant we stopped by, and then we end up going back to his house. I don't know at all where we went. I don't remember a clue. We go to this guy's house, and we sleep in the camper when we're inside, in the camper. We don't sleep inside the house. And I think he invited us, or we could sleep, and I was like, no, I'm fine sleeping, because, it was a camper. Never experienced a RV camping experience. So, I recall early in the morning we wake up, my mother wakes me up, Dad and Julian, I want to say, who's with us, Frankie, we go on the side and eat. And I don't know why, I don't know why, I don't know where I learned this word, or I just barely had heard it. And I asked my father in the middle of the dinner table, I said, what does gay mean? what does gay mean? And I said this at the dinner, not understanding what it meant. And I don't know where I heard somebody say this. And I remember there was a stole moment. And my mother goes, and she goes like this. And I go like, what? And I remember that guy kind of froze and he looked at my dad. And I remember my dad, and I could tell my dad was pissed off. Like, he got mad because I said that. And I didn't wanted to know. And I said, what does that mean? What is... I didn't know what it meant. So, you know, not to mention that I remember smelling Frankie. You know, that certain smell that I could smell when we were in the car because I was sleeping next to him. And so we, you know, I don't think we even stayed there the night, so wherever it was, I don't remember. I think it could have been visiting just a quick site and then left, and it was just maybe for a trip. We ended up going back to his house, another whatever hours, and breakfast is eating, we wake up, everything's normal. My dad seemed kind of agitated, like I had said that because I didn't know what it meant, and I don't know if his wife had a transgender. I'm going to say, I don't know if this guy had a kid or not, but I want to say I think he did, but he was spending the night somewhere else or something. Anyway, I never saw this guy again. He sort of just disappeared, just was long gone. I don't know what had happened. But after that trip, I want to say it was like within 6 months, I would say around that ratio time, I remember this kid by the name of Josh. And he was like a redheaded kid, like a redhead, dark brown, like a redhead carrot. He was a little white kid. He had a kind of a raspy voice. and I remember being in his class and being in Miss Spencer's class, which was a art teacher. And I remember this guy that we had gone on a camping trip with that I hadn't heard from in 6 months. We never showed up to our house, but I can remember he showed up to pick up his son. And his kid was this kid named Josh. He goes, yeah, that's my son. And I asked Josh, I want to say I remember telling this kid, I said, who's that guy? He goes, oh, that's your dad? Because, you know, I guess he was adopted, you know, he must have been adopted. And I remember him showing up, and this is right after the Michael Jackson, this is within a time frame, you know, the whole Michael Jackson thing, it took, once it got into about 6 months to a year to two, it really blew up because the word of mouth and intensity even got even worse. And because of Miguel, what had happened. So I remember this guy getting scared because the teachers and I remember looking at him and he was like looking back and he was like what the heck's going on? Like what the? And so this guy, he pulled out his son from Good Elementary, and I remember talking to Josh. He said he was transferring to a different school. Now these are some of the type of effects that I don't think anybody's ever going to know about, because this guy, I don't think he knew about Miguel touching Frankie, and nor did I think he knew about Michael Jackson. But because he knew I was connected to somehow, my dad may have talked to him in the hallways or something like that, stopping by, it immediately led him to suspicion. And so the target just keeps changing to whatever person that let's get away with what, who's preventing from Frankie living a normal life, who's the hero, let's shift it to protect Michael Jackson, the gays. Let him get off the hook, Miguel. That's what the whole theme was. I mean, the police officers were putting on a show in front of the fucking stage, in front of 600 fucking students. And I thought it was important for me to talk about, because this guy, I never heard from this guy again, and I asked my father, hey, whatever happened to that Indian guy? And I remember he looked at him, he was like, I don't know. And so there were people, I think, that gravitated and cut my father off to want to communicate with him because of what was happening. This guy could have known or then found out and didn't want to say anything and bailed out on my dad. But I know that his son, if he's still alive, he's the same age as me, or within a year or two younger than me. But he was like a dark. He had like a reddish brown hair, like a redheaded kid. And I'm gonna say he had like a red hair, like he had tints of red hair, and kind of like freckles. And I remember him he was pretty athletic. By looking at him, you could, he looked like he was probably going to be, a pretty broad football player, little kid. Like when he gets older, he's going to have a strong build. But he was skinny, and I was a little bit taller than him. But I say this because I remember this guy acting paranoid when he came and picked us up at the art class. Like he was just looking at me and he did, something had happened. And I remember him looking at the teachers, and I don't know what had ever happened. But this kid would be able to tell you probably what this more stories was. I don't remember. I do know that there was a kid named by Kyle Shiplet that was his friend during elementary school. You knew certain kids that were kind of gravitating towards certain kids for some reason, and for him it seemed like he gravitated. Gravitated toward him, or he was kind of be able to some kid was able to tell him what to do, and I recall that, so I thought it was important, for me to talk about, because in my opinion, I think this guy bailed out my dad and didn't want to say anything because he then found out, because I remember he was kind of then starting to ignore me, and he walked away with his son, and I think I tried to wave at him or try to say like he knew who I was, and he just quickly took his son and just kind of quickly walked away, and he transferred his son to a different school. So I don't remember where this guy lived. I remember he lived in a nice home. He lived in a cabin home. Because when we went inside his home and the outside of his house, I remember it looked like a cabin, like a fancy cabin though. When you walked in, it was a nice cabin. It was like, it looked like it was made out of wood log, and it was pretty fancy. It was a nice home, very nice home. Way nicer than a lot of homes I'd ever been in, everything a Mexican person would live in. And very cozy in the house, very nice carpet, decorative, sort of like a hunter's cabin, sort of, but with like sort of a little bit of native stuff in there. But I thought it was important for me to talk about, and I thought it was important for me to talk about because that guy, I think, knew. I believe he knew, but I think there was people attacking him because he was connected. Because you got to understand, everyone's wondering why is Frankie showing up like this and doing this, and my father's not doing anything, or seems to be not doing anything. But in my opinion, I don't think my dad could smell. I just don't think my dad could smell very well. Just the way he was, how he dressed, and it took a lot. My dad had a parrot nose, was always had runny nose, always kept a handkerchief, in his pocket, to blow his nose, and wore thick Coke bottle glasses. So there wasn't too much that would bother him. He was a cigarette smoker, so he was a very heavy cigarette smoker. But there was actions, in my opinion, that people took in order to think, how is it that we can prevent this old man from ever opening his mouth, or it lead to this in any way? How is it? What can happen? So what people start to do is what they did to me, and they do to several situations when they scavenge off the goods. They sabotage you. They start leading conversations into different directions to get what they want, saying that that's not what they were really trying to do, but that's really what they were trying to do. And by the time you find out, it's too late. But I do believe that this kid, because I remember he was like sort of like didn't want to put eye focus and look at me because he wasn't like that before. I remember I'd seen this guy, and he would like got scared or shocked, that whatever what was happening, there was something really bad that happened, and he didn't want to get involved. That's for sure. That's how I believe about the situation. But I think it's important. I think it's important for me to talk about. I think it's important for me to talk about this because I really don't. I really don't know the circumstances of it, but you could probably track down that little kid. I remember his name was Josh or Joshua. It's either Josh or Joshua, but I'm gonna say it was Josh. I don't remember his last name, but I'm sure the kid was adopted. But I thought it was important, whoever this kid was, sure if he's still alive or not, you'd be able to kind of fit in the story how my dad knew this guy or met him, but he was like native. But I don't know this entire story to that. I don't know if this guy. I knew without a doubt his demeanor completely changed when he saw him. When he entered that school and picking up kids at the art class and the Spencer's class, there was something that happened. I don't know what it was, but there was something that was notorious that he looked around and because the teachers were going frantically. You got to understand that, the art teacher was doing this to protect Miguel and saying who was in charge and no, this isn't this. The teachers are doing this. It's the fucking teachers. And they look at the parents and they're full platoon army gay soldiers. I mean, they're soldiers for the gays, and that's it. They controlled everything. I remember the wars that they had with women, real women there. It was real nasty. They controlled everything. They manipulated, so they hired a bunch of gay lesbians, gay transgender principals, and then they would overthrow the women by allowing the gays and lesbians and transgender teachers to completely dominate the straight community, completely wipe them out. And like they had no choice, like they were in prison. It was like that in some cases, even in middle school in DeWitt Perry, how the teachers would stay in their rooms and they wouldn't want to associate with the other ones because they knew that they were in charge. Because they would immediately then go to the assistant principals and all that other shit, and the gays, and they would just lead to what was going on. I mean, that's all they would do, and that's all they would do. So I think it was important. I thought it was important for me to talk about, and about the circumstances. I'm not necessarily trying to say anything bad, but whatever it was spooked him, and that's the story. So you may be able to find this kid, whoever, because I'm sure you went through yearbooks at Good Elementary, and found this kid. And I want to say I think he could have been I could have been somewhere maybe second or third grade. I'm going to say I think that was in second grade, maybe first. No more than past third grade. But I want to say it was somewhere around second or third grade, and I think he was in Miss Knight's class with a kid named Kyle Shiplett. And so anyway, I thought I would say something about that, and maybe add to whatever story that may lead to. But also could lead to what the circumstances, because this guy looked like he abandoned my father, and didn't want to say anything, and took his kid, because there was really no reason. I mean, that guy, I want to say, owned that house. I mean, it was a nice house, and he was living there, and for him to pull out a kid that was already going to school there for absolutely no reason, go take him to a different school, I don't know what that story was. But I remember asking my dad about this guy, whatever happened to him, and he kind of shrugged off, but the way he's kind of, I may have interpreted this part of the story wrong, but to me, when I heard him say, when I asked about whatever happened to that guy, and he was like, I don't know, and he kind of looks forward and like, I don't know. like this guy disappeared or didn't want to associate with my father anymore. So anyway, I thought I'd say something about this, and I remember it was messed up because I talked to this guy. I mean, they were having this moment. I think he had a transgender wife. I want to say he had a transgender wife. I don't think his wife wasn't straight, but I remember the looks, how they used to always give my dad, because my mom was so young. Little alone did they know my father was actually having sex with my mother. My dad would just to keep going, and and I remember this guy kind of looking over at my dad like secretive for a moment. And my father was pissed, like, we're doing a gay moment, or some shit like that. And that's what I assumed, but it was weird because I remember my dad getting upset. Not directly at me, but he just kind of getting upset, like, at the situation. And I remember my father kind of, putting, eggs in his burrito and, kind of like. And I knew when he looked at me, it was like, okay, and I just wouldn't say anything. So it was kind of weird, but I thought I would say that because my dad had a way of navigating through life with people to make life happen. I can't even imagine what he didn't say, what he did to try to get through the racism and the Ku Klux Klan, and how he was treated, because my father was Native American Indian, very tanned, and wasn't a very handsome looking guy. He wasn't by all means. I loved my father, but he just wasn't a model looking guy. He just wasn't. And but he strutted like he was he was a very handsome person, and would try to mac on girls in front of me, like at the video store and stuff, to demonstrate to me how to pick up women. And then he would just kind of flirt with them, and kind of show off and strut, like he still got it at 65 years old, doesn't work, look, he worked out a day in his life, and it was a cigarette smoker, and he tried to kind of work his game plan and try to talk with women that were like 25 years old, because my mom was like 25 at that time. And so anyway, I thought I'd say something about this, and thought I'd make a video on that. But yeah, there was one other subject I wanted to talk about that's kind of pretty frightening. Many years ago, I was about 30 years old when I started to go homeless. About 12 years ago, and there used to be a guy that was a very nerdy looking guy. He was kind of like mentally kind of, without a doubt you could tell, and there was this little kid by the name of RJ, I think he was. And I recall I lived at his apartment. This is where I sold my records. He came by, someone picked up some records and left. But when I was living there for like 2 weeks, or for like a week, in his empty apartment, I remember that there was a gunshot. There was someone who brought a gun, but it was weird because when I was in this apartment with this guy black kid named Mark, because RJ's black kid showed up, and he was like 18 years old, 19. But this kid worked at Kroger, and he told me right across the hall, he said, "Yeah, that guy over there, he's a playboy. Yeah, he worked. His name is David." Really? It's like, I didn't know that. And he would always have. He goes, "Yeah, I see that guy bring women in all the time." So, but this guy, he was really offbeat. He had a disability. He said he was born with some sort of autism. Never heard from this guy again until many years later. I saw him. He used to always ride his bike everywhere. And I remember many years ago, when this happened, I was at his house. Out of nowhere, it was like maybe right before sundown, we heard somebody kicking in the door. and it was like right across the street, or not across the street. It was, we lived in this apartment complex, and there was like a 4-door block, and then there was like a little park or like an open space in the middle, and it was apartment here, apartment here, apartment here, and apartment here. And we stayed here, and right across, but not directly across, but over here, there was an apartment complex on the top level, because we also lived on the top level, that somebody started kicking in the door. I mean, you could hear the guy turned around, and he didn't give a shit. I mean, it was like some black kid, some black guy. He looked young. He looked about my size, maybe even skinnier. But this guy was like crazy. Like, this guy was pissed. I mean, whatever it was that he kept on bam, bam, bam. I mean, he back up and boom, and trying to kick in the fucking door. After a couple of kicks, I mean, he was out there beating on that door probably for like trying to kick it in for like a solid 2 minutes. For like 2 or 3 minutes, he was just boom, boom, boom. I mean, he was doing everything to bust through that door. He turned around and I guess got tired and just started kicking the door like with his back leg, just back kicking. But after a few kicks, we look out to see what's going on. And we see him with a gun. With like a Glock. I don't know, I'm not familiar with like the street guns people. I guess they call them Glocks or something. But this guy has a gun, and he's kicking in the door. Like, he's gonna, whoever is in this fucking house, that he's kicking in this door. This guy does not care. He does not care who the fuck anybody in those apartments are, or whoever's calling the police. He knows people are calling the police, okay? And he's all by himself, and he's holding this gun, and he doesn't end up breaking the door, and you can see him holding a gun. So this to us was an immediate murder. Like, whoever the fuck was in that house had an extremely high chance that he was going to kill that person. He was going to possibly kill the person or shoot them. And I don't know what happened, if then he started walking downstairs. But this guy was there for like 15 minutes, I want to say. And he kept on yelling at the person. And I think he said a girl's name. And he said, blah, blah, open the door now. Open the door now. And I told you, you better open this door. What I'm going to do to you, open the door now. And this guy was like, we thought he was going to start shooting at the door. I mean, this guy was genuinely doing everything he could to kick in the door. And those apartment doors, man, they're very heavy doors. The apartment doors, particularly at this apartment complex and many others, most of them, they don't make them like that in the expensive ones, but it was kind of the older apartments. The doors are very thick. Anyway, he starts kicking, doesn't open the door, and like he's pushing his face up against the door, the crack of the door, saying, open the door now. Like, he was going to kill the person if you don't open the fucking door. And I don't know if he said he had a gun. I don't think he did. And I don't know what happened. I'm going to say that he started walking downstairs, and then we started walking downstairs, and then the police show up. There's 2 officers, and they draw their guns up toward the stairs. And they say, put your hands up. And he kind of looked, and he had the gun. I mean, the police officers must have seen him have a gun, because this guy was in a rage. We thought this guy was going to start for real, to start shooting the cops. Like, whoever was in this house, immediately, from everything that was going on, body language, what he was yelling, he wanted to kill the person that was inside that apartment. Or he was gonna scare the living shit out of them, and he had his gun. This guy was not concerned who the fuck could see him. He was not trying to hide his gun. He didn't care. He knew he was going to jail, didn't give a shit, or was going to have a shootout. And it was some black guy, it was some black kid. And I want to say, I don't remember this, but there were some girls, I think I remember, that were living in that apartment. I might have seen them, but I remember seeing maybe a kid or two walk in there. And I remember they arrest him, and they see him walk in handcuffs. And me and this black kid, this light-complected black kid, RJ, and this other kid, we see him walk away, and we're like, damn, that guy's going to jail for a long time. You know, he's probably got like 10 years. Anyway, what I forgot to mention as well about man, I want to say he was maybe out there for like maybe kicking that door for like 10 minutes. I mean, this guy was not leaving. It was 3 minutes kicking a door is a very long time, but I want to say it was more than that, because this girl did not, whoever was in that apartment didn't want to open the fucking door, and I don't know if they screamed out something to go away, or I'm calling the cops or something, but the person didn't want to open the door. I said, open the door now. And when I was inside the apartment, I was crawling toward the window to look to see, and this guy David, who has sort of a mental dysfunction, not Down syndrome, but like a bad case of autism, and he looks over and he's looking through the window, and I feel like I gotta take care of this guy because he's gonna get himself killed. Like, his personality, this guy kind of seems like the person who would probably walk up to him and try to be nice to him, you know. Why he has a gun, this guy, you know, and invade, or maybe just do something really dumb, you know, not necessarily just that, maybe try to take the gun away from him thinking he's gonna, I don't know, but and I immediately, we hear this BAM! We hear the gunshot. Open the door now! Like, she didn't want to open the door, and he shoots the gun and says, open the door now! And he shot the gun at the fucking ground. When I heard it, I immediately fall to the ground, and I immediately fall to the ground, and I reach over to this guy. I think was his name David? I think his name was also David. And I reach over to this kid, or this guy, and I kind of help push him down. And I'm like, get down, dude, you're looking out that window, he's going to shoot us. And this guy, I'm telling you, he was looking for blood. I was kind of nervous that this guy may want to cause attention, and I don't know if he wants to think we're involved, but we weren't. And this kid kind of freaks out. And I said, stay away from the window. If you start shooting over here, he's going to shoot you. And I kind of helped this guy. And he immediately takes a shot at my ribs and hits me at my ribs. Like, and he goes like this, and he goes, yo, get away. And he's kind of doing this. So the guy has a gun, he's going to shoot you. And I'm like holding the rib from taking a shot to the ribs. You know, and he's looking out the windows. This guy's going to shoot you if you're looking out that window. Stay away. Let them call the police, or call the police. I don't know if this guy, what could have been on drugs or anything, but, you know, he just didn't give a shit. He just absolutely didn't care who was going to call the police. This guy had no fear who was going to be there. No fear. This guy snapped. And they take him away. It all happened between about a solid of about 20 minutes. From the moment we saw this guy, and he was wearing like a white t-shirt, I think. This guy probably looked like he was 21. Like 21 years old. Anyway, the police officers show up, they draw a gun, they see him, he's walking downstairs. And they say, put your hands up, and there's just two cops. And then he goes like this. And he just kind of tosses his gun like, fuck him, I don't care, just take me, I don't give a fuck. they take them, and then that was pretty much it. And all of a sudden, we see the door open, and this black girl is holding a phone, and she has like several candles lit on her. Like she's like, you could tell she's like praying, like scared that this guy was gonna kill her. Like she, whatever. I don't know what this girl did. I don't think it was a transgender. This guy looked straight. This guy without a doubt. I mean, I think he was pretty straight. I don't think this was a transgender. I think this was a real woman, if I remember right. This is a real guy. He was pissed. And when we see the door open and the cops finally walk upstairs, or some other cops, they open the door and we see, like on the counter, some candles lit. And for a moment before the cops get in there and the door cracks open, she's like on the phone in front of the candle, like trying to call the police or some shit. I don't know who she's calling. I'm just relative maybe, because the police were already there. And she's like, looks scared. Like this guy was gonna, fuck her up. He was gonna shoot her. Anyway, and that was it. But this is around the same exact time they towed my car. I was working for Sprint. I'm not Sprint. Was it Sir Speedy? No, it was. Could have been Sir. No, it was a Sir Speedy. I don't remember what the name of the place was. But there used to be this guy by the name of Mr. Sean Sparks that I worked for, and it was a print shop in downtown. And this is when I was living there when they towed my car, because I remember I got a tax return that was $2,000, and the taxes that they gave me, I don't know how I got $2,000. I don't know where this came from. It was one of the weird things. The taxes told me they sent me $2,000, and then later they told me they made a mistake and needed their money back. But I used that money, and it was an authentic check. I used this money to pull my car out of the impound. And I got lucky because I was in jail. I was in jail. No, I wasn't. My car was impounded, and I didn't have any money to take out my car. And I spent all the money to have my car pulled out of the impound. It was fucking crazy because I spent like a fortune of money. And it didn't even matter because they ended up towing my car anyway. It was all gone. Within a month. They towed my car anyway, and that's when I lost my car permanently. I never got my car again. But these are some of the frightening stuff. I don't think anybody's ever heard this story before, what was going on. And I remember, I think this kid, he had like a DVD set, or really liked, what was that TV show with, was it the Third Rock, or the Planet Rock, or was it, I can't remember the name of, Katie Kuko, that's her name, Katie Kuko, her TV show, she used to have, I can't remember what it is, with all those like nerds and college students. It was like, you had like 4 or 5 of them all living in an apartment. Katie Kuko was like one of the main characters, and she was on this, I can't remember the TV show, but he really liked that TV show. It was like one of his favorite TV shows he liked watching. And anyway, I thought I'd bring up this video because they had trained dogs there. I remember he said he found like this. I remember he found this like golden retriever out of nowhere, and he just brought it home and shit, out of nowhere. And literally the dog shits right next to my head. Like I'm sleeping on this hammock, on this hammock, or what do you call a hammock? It's like a military bed, or those, the ones you just fold up beds. And I'm laying asleep on one of those. Well, no, I'm sorry, I didn't get that until a few days after. But I'm sleeping on the floor, and out of nowhere, this dog comes in the middle of the night, or sometime during the night, or in the morning. This dog literally walks right like a foot or 2 away from me. And I see this, I kind of look, and I open my eyes, and this dog is just taking a shit, massive shit, right next to me. And I just barely see it talking his shit. I said, what the fuck? Your dog's just taking a shit next to me? What the fuck's wrong? Anyway, dog takes a shit, and the dog disappears. I don't know what he did with the dog. Then he uses a spatula to like pick up the shit off the ground, and then tries to use it for cooking. I don't know what the fuck. And it was weird because I never heard from this guy again. Never saw him again, or the black kid again, who was homeless as well. But I do recall that this guy, I want to say his name was David. I saw him like 4 years later. I would say like 2, 3 years later. And I was over here, not too far from here, where he used to work. He used to actually live right over here, down the street from Kroger, just down the street. And he used to work at Kroger. And I remember just about 3 years after I stopped living with this guy, I saw him one day at a bus stop, and I talked to him, and he was talking perfectly normal. All of a sudden, he changed his voice, and he went like he had been acting the whole time. His persona of being a Down syndrome person, like he went back to like he was weird. And I was like, what the fuck? Didn't you start talking normal? What the fuck? It was weird. So I thought I'd make a video on this. You know, obviously, what the hell? Who cares? You know, 12 years ago. But some of the things that I'd gone through, you know, I was like, you know, somebody's drilling out a gun, pulls out a gun, kicking in the door, and takes a gunshot, shoots the gun. And to me, it's like a reality that I don't really understand. It becomes just reality. It's just, it doesn't seem to be just about it's just about survival. It doesn't seem about anything else. But anyway, I thought I'd make a video on that, so hopefully this kind of helps. Whatever it is, went on there.